Hey, what up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you. What a week we have had here with WWE. We had the big 900th edition of WWE SmackDown right up around the corner in 2 days. We have the Survivor Series. This is going to be a big one with Brock Lesnar and Goldberg going at it one-on-one. WWE Monday Night Raw ends with Goldberg and Brock Lesnar going face to face. Brock Lesnar having to destroy, probably at least 6 or 7 of the, extra security guards that are in the ring taking bumps for him. He was able to rip his shirt off. He was able to show that this guy is here and he's ready to play. Brock Lesnar looks like hasn't been in a ring in a long time, or either that he's scared of the WWE's wellness policy. Brock doesn't look as big. Brock doesn't look as cut, or I don't really know the word that I was looking for. But when Brock took his shirt on, it didn't look like he was UFC ready. Is probably the best way to put it. Brock's seen his better days. I don't know if he's fearing that since he's going to be around, that maybe WWE might want to take example of him with the wellness policy. I think it's well known that Brock is exempt from it because of his status with WWE. But maybe they might want to change that, and maybe that's why he wasn't looking as good as he is. This is a big match for Brock Lesnar. This is a lot of press that the video game has been getting, as well as WWE has been getting. Goldberg has been all over ESPN, doing SportsCenter and various other shows. He was just randomly inserted into Highly Questionable the other day, and he's walking around the campus being interviewed, talking about how he got into wrestling, talking about his football career, as short as it was, talked about how he got his NFL sack. The one sack that he got in the NFL was stripped away from him because somebody on the Falcons who had more of a career than he did, that was more of a sought-after player by the Falcons, complained in the office, and the office took the sack away and gave it to the other player. It's a pretty interesting story. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube if you look for it. But, also with the 900th edition of SmackDown, you've got one of the championship matches changed. This match was originally announced as Dolph Ziggler going up against Sami Zayn for the Intercontinental Championship. Really entertaining match that it sounded like these guys could really go out there and turn it up to 100 and just have a really good exhibition match, with the Intercontinental title on the line, and really have a chance to have the best match on the card. Seeing how, Goldberg versus Brock is probably just going to be two monsters beating each other up. And the only other singles match is going to be Kalisto going up against Brian Kendrick for the Cruiserweight Championship. Definitely, this had my odds-on favorite to be taking the nod of having the best match of the night. I think that it's kind of weird. We've seen matches be named, with sort of stipulations of changing a pay-per-view before, but this is really honestly one of the first times that I can see where they've put out promotion for a pay-per-view and then gone and changed their mind about what they were going to do. The Miz beating Ziggler, especially in the ways that he did it, with Maurice rolling the roll-up, was a pretty cool thing, but to take away a match that a lot of people were excited for on the pay-per-view was still kind of screwy. Still leaves us with a lot of big stipulation matches. With the Cruiserweight title, if Kalisto wins, he brings the Cruiserweight Championship, as well as the entire Cruiserweight division. Everyone's packing it up and moving to SmackDown, but of course with 205 Live, I think everybody can see that going on. If Sami Zayn beats The Miz, he brings the Intercontinental Championship and takes that to Monday Night Raw. I don't think there's any real big stipulations involved in the 5-on-5 or 10-on-10 Survivor Series women and tag team match, but I think there is easily enough to say that there is an asterisk next to the big traditional men's Survivor Series match of the Team Raw versus Team SmackDown. Team SmackDown got one hell of an inspirational speech by The Undertaker on SmackDown number 900. On the SmackDown Live that happened on Tuesday, Undertaker basically said that he was back and he was ready to be Undertaker again, and he was ready to start digging some holes. And if SmackDown didn't win this match, SmackDown's getting their ass kicked. I don't know when that's coming. We already know that basically two of these guys on the SmackDown team, Dean Ambrose and AJ Styles, are going to be involved in a TLC match come December on WWE's network pay-per-view. I don't know if that means, that Undertaker shows up on that Tuesday on SmackDown and starts killing fools, or if he surprisingly shows up at TLC and goes after them. But the dream sequence that I've thought up and a lot of other people have thought up is that Undertaker is coming for that championship. He wants to take that title off of AJ Styles, and we're going to see if that's going to have to happen. But let's talk about Survivor Series. Let's get down to it. This is going to be a damn good show and a ton of fun, so let's sit around and talk about it. All right, we're going to kick it off with the first match from Survivor Series 2016, that being the WWE Cruiserweight Championship match, which is a Raw versus SmackDown match, which is going to be Brian Kendrick bringing the Cruiserweight Championship and challenging against Kalisto. Kalisto basically got this match by helping out Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon on SmackDown by being in a match against Baron Corbin, and honestly hurting Baron Corbin. Baron Corbin being one of the main stars of SmackDown, a guy that had been named to the SmackDown brand. I guess you can say the cream of the crop match, the 5-on-5 Raw versus SmackDown male superstar match. Out of the middle of nowhere, Kalisto, when they split up him and Sin Cara, basically they did this to break up their tag team. Kalisto, had times meant something. They tried to make him a United States champion. He had a series of matches against Alberto Del Rio. He had a WrestleMania pre-sale match, or pre-show match going up against Ryback. It never really panned out because you would watch, Monday Night Raw, and, Kalisto would be the United States champion. And then you'd put him on SmackDown, and next thing you know, he's wrestling in a match with Sin Cara in a tag match, and he'd be taking the fall. So it was like, does this guy mean something and he's on the rise as a United States champion, or is he just a guy in a tag match that they don't really know what they're doing with? It was almost like the two different writing teams had no clue that what he was doing on the other show. One team didn't know that the guy didn't mean a damn, and the other show didn't know that this guy was a rising star. So having the different brands and having guys write for certain guys, I think that's going to help a lot of guys out. But this match, to me, honestly, is something that you have to be, reading the Observer or reading the dirt sheets to go down with. Of course, the major news is that WWE is going to be launching a new WWE Network show coming off of the Cruiserweight Classic. That was I think that was something that they knew was going to be a success, but I don't think they knew it was going to be as big a success as it was. Of course, because of that, at the end, Brian Kendrick, TJ Perkins, who won the tournament, was granted the Cruiserweight Championship. This was a surprise. They didn't announce this until the live taping of the last show. Originally, it was just going to be a trophy given to the winner. Then it immediately became the Cruiserweight Championship, and the Cruiserweight Championship was going to be defended on Monday Night Raw. A lot of people at that time didn't think it made a lot of sense, seeing how Daniel Bryan and the SmackDown announcer Ronaldo were the announcers of the Cruiserweight Classic, and you're immediately taking the Cruiserweights, putting them on Monday Night Raw. I know that you were saying at the time of the draft that because, Raw has 3 hours and SmackDown only has 2, that Monday Night Raw had to have a bigger roster of people to be able to fill out the entire show. So you were doing where they got 2 picks to SmackDown only getting 1, which was easily a slight to the SmackDown brand, which is sort of like, I brought up in the preview for Survivor Series, that the brand split right off the bat was sliding SmackDown, and because of the way SmackDown has been treated since 2011, it just makes it look like the show doesn't mean as much. But now with WWE Network, launching the new show, which I believe is called 205 Live, just for the Cruiserweights, which is going to be filmed live after SmackDown is filmed on the they're on the USA Network. Now the Cruiserweights are going to be moved from Monday Night Raw to SmackDown, which honestly, I was talking about sliding SmackDown. Now I think you're sliding the Cruiserweight division, because it's almost like you can tell that Vince McMahon, this was sort of pushed on him as the Cruiserweight division, bringing it to Monday Night Raw, and immediately he's dumping it onto SmackDown now. On one hand, they're getting a new show, which is going to be good for the Cruiserweights to be able to show their own stuff, but I think honestly, in my mind, I would bet that 205 is probably going to end up just being a show like Superstars, where these guys do have an hour to go out and wrestle, and it just becomes a wrestling match with no storylines, no championship matches, just guys going out there for an hour and having matches, which is fun if you want to watch fun wrestling, but at the end of the day, you're like, I just watched an hour of wrestling and nothing really meant anything. And I know that I am not somebody who's been following Lucha Underground in a long time, but from the reviews and the people that watch Lucha Underground, they say the Lucha Underground honestly just feels like the season that's going on right now is just a whole bunch of things happening with no real consequences and not really building up to anything. There's no pay-per-view. There's no championship matches. They have the big blow-off at the end of the season, and a lot of the matches have already been named, but nothing is happening week to week, and there's no real progression in any of the storylines or any of the characters or anything like that. And that's what I think that, 205 Live might just sort of get pushed to the back of the pack. Because of this, I honestly think that there's going to be a title change in the Kalisto versus Brian Kendrick match. I think that Kalisto will be able to beat Brian Kendrick. Kalisto will become the Cruiserweight champion. He'll be able to sort of bring the brand to SmackDown because the Cruiserweights will have to follow the championship, and then you don't really have to have some sort of storyline where the Cruiserweights walk out on Monday Night Raw. Or they just don't have to have this ghost change where they just all come over. You'll be able to get Ronaldo commentating over the matches, which I think he's going to be doing the commentating for 205 Live as well. And the more wrestling that he gets to commentate and the more WWE gets to use him is honestly going to be a plus. I know that you want to keep him on SmackDown because that's just where he is right now, but honestly, he needs to become the number one announcer. He's one of the best things that there is about SmackDown. I think that people might think it's kind of weird that Kendrick is dropping the championship so soon after winning it from TJ Perkins. But honestly, I think the way that you could tell that the TJ Perkins versus Brian Kendrick storyline changed so much with Brian Kendrick telling TJ Perkins that he had to let him beat him, and that didn't really come out in any of the weeks leading up to that match before Brian Kendrick beat TJ Perkins on the show that was in the Staples Center. There was no sort of build up to that. We've already seen Kendrick beat him, so why couldn't he beat him again, and why would he want him just to lay down for him? So I guess Brian Kendrick is just sort of a transitional champion to get him over there. From there, you'll be able to see Kalisto maybe go up against Sin Cara in a singles match. You'll be able to see Kalisto go up against TJ Perkins. There's Swan. There's a lot of guys. Noam Dar just debuted on the SmackDown show in Scotland. So there's a lot of guys in there. They're going to get their time to shine on SmackDown, and then being able to feature these matches is going to be really fun. It goes back to, back in the day when the minis or the cruiserweights were on SmackDown before. So I think this is a good home for them. Plus them getting their own show will be fun for a little bit before I think WWE pulls the plug and gives up on him. So we'll have to see what this means, but picking Kalisto to beat Brian Kendrick in this match. All right, here we go. Intercontinental Championship. The Miz filling in for Dolph Ziggler. No injury, no suspension, no nothing. I talked about it when I made my review of SmackDown 900. I said that there has to be some story coming out of why The Miz defeated Dolph Ziggler for the Intercontinental Championship on that show, with the Survivor Series already being named as a Raw versus SmackDown match. Sami Zayn going up against Dolph Ziggler. Now it's going to be Sami Zayn going up against The Miz. It was kind of weird that they were already announcing that they were going to have a title match before the pay-per-view match. And Sami Zayn touched on that on Monday Night Raw, basically saying that it didn't matter who it was going to be. He was going to go and compete at the Survivor Series against either The Miz or Dolph Ziggler. And he was going to go out there and he was going to bring the Intercontinental Championship to Monday Night Raw. But I was joking that, Dolph Ziggler, something had to have happened. He had to have got hurt. He had to have, got suspended. He had to quit. He had to have something, because it doesn't really make sense. They've done it before where there's matches before a pay-per-view, but I don't think I've ever seen it where they've done a switch to the pay-per-view when we didn't know long ways before that they were going to do the switch. This was just a surprise. This seemed like it was out of the middle of nowhere. And I know there are stories out there basically saying that Sami Zayn is going to win this match and he's going to take the Intercontinental title to Monday Night Raw because they have 3 hours and they have to have another title. That does not make any sense to me. That just does not make sense. I still think The Miz is going to win this match. I think the Intercontinental Championship will stay with SmackDown. For one, they've already got the WWE Universal Championship on Kevin Owens. They've got the United States Championship on Roman Reigns. Those belts are already being held in the men's 5-on-5 Survivor Series match. They're not on the line. They're not going to be switching to SmackDown. There's no stipulation on that. You've got your tag team titles, which are held by the New Day. They're not going anywhere because SmackDown already has their own tag team titles. They've got AJ Styles as their WWE World Heavyweight Champion. So if your Intercontinental Championship, The Miz, switches over and jumps to Monday Night Raw, I do know that there's a chance that there's a damn good chance. I think everybody knows that the Cruiserweight Championship is going to be coming over. But for the wrestlers that are on SmackDown, just having your WWE World Heavyweight Championship, your Cruiserweight title, and your tag team titles, that's not enough for SmackDown. You gotta have to have a mid-card to lower-card title. Because if you take your Intercontinental title and you move it over to Monday Night Raw, where does that make the belt that Roman Reigns has? Where does Intercontinental Championship and, United States title rank? And who's higher climbing up to the WWE World Heavyweight Championship? Back in the day, we used to have the Hardcore title, and then I think we had the European title, and they sort of battled for, what they were two different things, but they sort of battled for what was the least important title in the company. If you put your Intercontinental Championship and your United States Championship, you're going to clobber up Monday Night Raw's mid-card with too many titles being passed around. And that was the same thing that they had back in the day when you had your Intercontinental Championship, your European Championship, your Hardcore title. Back in the days of the Attitude Era before they, Eric Bischoff and storyline reduced all the titles, where he just said, we're just going to go with one title, and that's going to be it. People didn't like that because, you'd have your Undertakers, you'd have your Austins, your Triple H's, your Rocks. Those guys mattered. They were going to be fighting for those championships. But, your mid-card guys, you have to have mid-card matches to fill out a pay-per-view. If there's no championship, they could have a damn good match, but what are they really building towards? Every year, if you're lucky, one guy stretches into the main event, and a lot of times the guy that reaches that main event slot doesn't even really get to stay there, falls down. If you look at a guy like Dolph Ziggler, more than likely, pretty soon, Dean Ambrose, they're going to slip out of their spots. Ziggler fought for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam, and since then fell down to the Intercontinental title role. If you think about it, maybe Ziggler, maybe Miz can sniff getting into the main event, against a guy like AJ Styles. But, how long are they really going to stay there? Especially with somebody like The Undertaker showing up, maybe that'll get them to WrestleMania in the main event picture. But then after WrestleMania, Undertaker's going to do what Undertaker does, and it's so long, see you later. So, in my mind, I know I didn't really break it down all that much. I just think that the easiest way to put it is the championship is not being moved from SmackDown to Raw. The only way that I do think that this is going to happen is in storyline. Stephanie knows that Shane wants to have that championship back for the mid-card guys, for your guys like Jack Swagger, Titus O'Neil, Kurt Hawkins. These guys might not ever sniff the Intercontinental Championship, but that's what their ceiling is, you know what I'm saying? These guys aren't going to be fighting against AJ Styles anytime soon, but they're fighting to get that mid-card championship slot, and sometimes that belt falls just in the hands of just anybody, and that's what it could be. Maybe they make a trade to send the championship back, thinking that it's not worth something, but maybe they can get something out of it. That's the only storyline that I could see out of it, but when it comes down to it, Sami Zayn not going to be beating The Miz. The Miz will get the win. Championship will stay on SmackDown. Alright, now we get into probably the most non-needed, I'm trying to think of a good adjective to describe this match, but maybe the most worthless or the most time-consuming match of the Survivor Series 2016, which is going to be Team Raw versus Team SmackDown, the 10-man team, five team, I don't even know what the hell to call this match. What do they call it? The Team Raw versus Team SmackDown live in a 10-on-10 traditional Survivor Series tag team elimination match. I'm guessing that more than likely they're going to go back to the old school tag team matches, where basically that means, like, if you're talking about Enzo and Kaz, if Enzo gets eliminated, Kaz it gets eliminated as well. He doesn't have to take the pinfall. Just one member of the team has to be eliminated before they go. When they look at this match, there's a lot of teams in here, and it brings like a warmness to my heart. I've been talking about tag team wrestling in WWE, honestly, back to probably since 2010 when I first started making videos here on YouTube, just basically saying that tag team wrestling, having teams like the Usos, it just wasn't enough. There was only a few tag teams at some points on the roster, maybe 3 or 4 at the most, and it just seemed like they just went in a circle of what was going on. And there was some good teams out there, but just there wasn't enough teams to really have depth to what was going on. And more on Team SmackDown than on Team Raw. I see teams really meaning something. I mean, they have teams on SmackDown like the Ascension that's not going to be a part of this show that, really do mean something. We had the Ascension come out to basically have a stare down with the Hype Bros a few weeks ago, basically saying that they wanted to be involved in the tag team title hunt. They weren't going to get left behind. Honestly, in my opinion, Rhino and Heath Slater as champions, they've been able to keep the titles this long, has been a real big surprise to me. I don't think that they're really great champions. I would think almost anybody else on the brand holding the titles would mean something. The Heath Slater and Rhino, I need this job storyline didn't go the direction that I wanted it to. Honestly, in my mind, I think that it would have been a lot better if Rhino, not make him look stupid, not really turn on Heath, but if he would have took the fall and the Slaters would have lost their house, Heath Slater would have lost his job, and Rhino would have been able to have the Slaters move in with him, it would have been a better storyline and have a way for him to try and fight to get Heath Slater a rematch, to try and get back on SmackDown or give him a reason to be around. Honestly, in my mind, why the titles aren't on American Alpha, I have no idea. It seems like they're losing steam each and every week, but you can definitely tell with even the Monday Night Raw writers with, basically New Day running everyone down on the SmackDown brand. But then once they got to American Alpha, basically saying that they didn't really have anything bad to say about them. You can sort of see that maybe WWE does see something in these guys. They're letting them take their time to experience what it's like to be on the main roster. They didn't want to put the championships on them right away. Still, in my mind, Chad Gable and Jason Jordan are both going to be great stars. I don't think these guys are going to be involved in the tag team division for forever and ever. I don't know if it's going to be another year or not, but somewhere they have to find a spot where they're going to break loose and become a major force for the WWE, whether that's being on the mid card, being main eventers. Of course, everybody, because of the wrestling background, thinks that these guys are both going to become the next Kurt Angle. I think they're both real big stars. Jason Jordan's probably got an advantage because of his height, but Chad Gable, honestly, in my mind, is going to be able to make up for a lot of that. And we've seen, height's always going to mean something in WWE, but for the last few years, we've seen that basically sometimes when there's a lot of potential and a lot of, just real skill behind somebody, they will overlook it. Whether if that's Daniel Bryan, winning the championship at WrestleMania 30 or anything like that. But, when I look at Team Raw, I honestly don't think they're going to be able to get this done. I think when you talk about all three of the brands, honestly, and all three of the brand matches that are Survivor Series matches, all of these are put together of baby faces and heels all trying to work together, and I don't think it's going to be able to happen. I think in all three matches you're going to have people get eliminated because of the fact that people on their own teams turn on them, they can't work together. You've got Sheamus and Cesaro, who are a tag team, but they can't even get along together. And you've got everyone trying to get at the New Day. The New Day has held on to those championships for well over a year now, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see everyone turn on the New Day. We saw the New Day lose a non-title match. They've lost at least 10 to 20 of these non-title matches on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown over the course of this title reign, which to me sort of waters it down. And plus, I've gone on the fact of saying that I'm not the biggest New Day fan of all time. What I would like to see out of this match is honestly, you have to be an idiot if you think that Enzo and Kaz aren't probably the best bet to be the best survivors on Team Raw because of what Raw thinks of Big Kaz. They have been protecting him. He hasn't really meant what he's meant over the last 2 months. Of course, his highlight was being involved in that fatal 4-way for the World Heavyweight Championship when they put the belt on Seth Rollins. But I really want to see American Alpha be this, and I think that with them getting the sort of the wink wink from Monday Night Raw with New Day not being able to cut them down, I wouldn't be surprised if this is their coming out party and this is where they really start to move up the card. It doesn't mean that they have to win the tag team championships at the next pay-per-view at TLC, but sooner than later, this is going to have to happen. But I mean, they've got a lot of potential on the SmackDown brand. The Usos have been around forever. Even Breezango, whatever the heck it is, with Tyler Breeze and Fandango, those are really great wrestlers that make a really great team. I know they're kind of a comedy act right now, being the Fashion Police, but they're a real good team when they get into the ring. Even the Hype Bros are guys that I can get behind. I really think the Team SmackDown is going to pull this out, even though I think that there's a lot of potential on the Raw brand from Cesaro and Sheamus. I don't know why they put them together if they weren't going to win the tag team titles. I know that this Survivor Series is sort of a break in the storylines for a lot of people because these people have to work together. And I'm not sure if there's another Monday Night Raw pay-per-view after TLC or before TLC, before the Royal Rumble, where they're going to get a shot to go after the titles. But to put them as a tag team and sort of hide them here doesn't make a lot of sense. And of course, everybody knows that to me, Machine Gun Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows are two of the biggest stars on Monday Night Raw that aren't getting really used the way they are. I understand that heels have to get treated like idiots and they have to wrestle in stupid matches. And, when Halloween comes around, somebody has to put the pumpkin on their head. And honestly, in my opinion, I think that, them doing that spot was probably pretty funny and probably a good idea. And honestly, when you ask them about him, if you ever get a chance to meet him, they're not going to take any sort of negativity to that. They're going to embrace it. They're getting paid big money to wrestle for WWE. They get to wrestle in the States. They get to see their family more. This is what they're doing. They understand when they go there, they're not going to be the big machines that they were in New Japan. They have to sort of take that back. The reason why they haven't won the straps yet, I don't understand, but we'll have to see. I'm picking SmackDown to win this one. What do you guys think about? It's about the only way I can think to end this, because I don't think you really want me going into every tag team and what I think about what all these guys are doing. But honestly, in my opinion, get those belts off of the New Day sooner than later. Get those belts off of Heath Slater and Rhino and onto American Alpha sooner than later. And I think that tag team wrestling in WWE looking for a big boom in the next coming year. Here we go. This is going to be Team Raw versus Team SmackDown in a 5-on-5 traditional Survivor Series match featuring the women of Raw and SmackDown. Of course, this is the teams that are put together of Monday Night Raw being led by the WWE Women's Champion, Charlotte. She's going to be teamed up with Alicia Fox, who I think is being portrayed as a babyface, which honestly, when you look at these teams and they're being named, this team was supposedly named by WWE, even though Charlotte is the leader. Charlotte tried to sneak Dana Brooke onto the team, and she wasn't able to do it. So Charlotte being forced to team up with Nia Jax, who's one of the forces on Monday Night Raw that we haven't seen in a little bit of a while. I don't know if they maybe took her off television because of she just wasn't getting the job done the way they wanted it to, or if they wanted to sort of keep her as a surprise to being named to the Survivor Series team. They did do the same thing with Sasha Banks before she went on her championship run, beating Charlotte and being that contender. She was definitely off of TV for a good while, and some people thought it was just for the surprise factor of them getting from WrestleMania to SummerSlam. But, Alicia Fox, Bayley, and Sasha Banks teaming up with Charlotte is easily going to be where something I could see where Charlotte, I really think that she's going to be the ultimate survivor, but you have to really think about with all these baby faces, are they going to turn on Charlotte where Charlotte does something where she I don't know if she's going to do the Rick the Martel gimmick where she's going to try and walk out on them or what she's going to do, but all three baby faces taking turns hitting a finisher on Charlotte to show that, the women's division does have hope to get this title off of Charlotte and keep it, off of her for a while on Monday Night Raw. I wouldn't be surprised to see that, but when you look at the SmackDown team, they have more dissension and they have more of the girls going after each other more than the Team Raw team does. Nikki Bella is the team captain. They also have Natalya, who is the team coach. She's not, on the picture for the match, but she is going to be ringside like a manager. I don't know if maybe they're going to do some sort of a double turn like they did at Survivor Series with Mr. Fuji, where he came out and he was managing Demolition, but due to the fact that he got up on the ring and actually got bumped by Demolition, which caused them to get rolled up. Demolition would turn on him, and then Powers of Pain would pick Mr. Fuji up, dust him off, and even though they were on the babyface side, easily became heels that night and moved over to the other side. When you look at this, you've got Nikki Bella, who's not able to get along with Carmella. You've got Becky Lynch, who honestly just challenged against Alexa Bliss on SmackDown in Scotland for her women's championship. You know that she's gotten it for it. Naomi, who's beat Alexa Bliss, who is in a title hunt to go after Becky Lynch. We haven't really seen Nikki Bella say that she wants to go after the championship. I don't know if they're just protecting the babyface versus babyface gimmick. Carmella seems like the only thing she cares about is exposing Nikki Bella. On one hand, she talks like she's a heel, but if you're a fan and you boo Nikki Bella because she's with John Cena and she's on Total Bellas and she's on Total Divas, you cheer what she says. Honestly, when I used to watch Carmella in NXT, I didn't get the characters of her with Enzo and Kaz for a long time. And for a long time, it seemed like to me that Enzo and Kaz were heels, and then I finally sort of got it. But then I would see Carmella wrestle in singles matches, and when she would come out there without Enzo and Kaz, it was almost like she was the heel. And I don't know if this was sort of like the Lex Luger and Sting deal from Nitro in 1995, where Luger would be friends with Sting, and they would team together, but when Sting had his back turned, Luger would do like heel tactics where he would tell the fans to shut up, and at the minute Sting would turn around and look at him, he'd be high-fiving the fans and being his baby face, because they were setting up for the fact that Luger was going to turn on Sting, and that was going to happen sooner than later. Even though they were friends, Luger was, I guess you could say he was blinded by fame and didn't want Sting to be as famous as he is. I think that this is going to be a weird match. I think if you go back to, I believe, what Survivor Series was that? It was the first year of Total Bellas. It was the debut of Eva Marie, as well as JoJo, who I don't think ever wrestled ever again, unless it was just on an NXT show that wasn't televised. It was ugly. It was bad. Alicia Fox coming out of the attic to be dusted off and put in this match really doesn't mean anything. We haven't seen her since, I believe, Clash of the Champions, where she lost to Nia Jax. Them being able to say that they don't even know if Alicia Fox and Nia Jax can fight on the same team. She better be able to do it, because we all know that Alicia Fox did stand up to her. She hit her with everything she got, but Jax didn't take it, didn't really sell much of anything in that match, and I think Fox should know she's got her number, and she better try and beat her friend the best she's got. In my opinion, I think that Charlotte is the golden child, and even though I did the whole thing where I set up the fact that she might be Rick the Martel and she might walk out on her team when they're down, or the fact that the three baby faces might not want to put up with her, yelling and screaming like she's the big deal, I wouldn't be surprised if Charlotte is the Ultimate Champion. I think that honestly, when you look at the SmackDown brand, Natalya's out there for a reason. I don't know if maybe they didn't put her on there, but maybe they'll do another injury angle like they did with Baron Corbin, and that will mean that Natalya has to step up and be put on the team, whether that means Naomi being taken out and she has to be the hero to step up, so it's not 5-on-4 and it's 5-on-5. We've seen Natalya wrestling on SmackDown as of late, so it's not like she's hurt or anything like that. And they've already done the whole storyline where Natalya's too old. They did that with the first season of Total Divas, and they've left that behind. They've let her be a wrestler because she's a damn good wrestler. And if you ever go to any of the live events and Natalya's on there, the women's match is always going to be really good. Whether if it's singles or whether if it's a tag, it's always going to be really fun. So I'm picking Team Raw. I'm picking Charlotte. I think it'd be fun. Well, then leave Bailey in the background. I don't know, but I think it'd be fun if you really saw Sasha Banks and Charlotte be the ultimate survivors of this match, and then as they're having to celebrate, holding up each other's arms that Team Raw won the match, maybe they have them holding the women's championship in the middle. I can't. I'm only one guy here, but the two girls holding their hands up, title draped in between it because Charlotte's holding it maybe in her left hand and Sasha's grabbing it with the right, and then maybe you have a pull apart, and that leads to Sasha versus Charlotte for the championship one more time. But then again, they built up Hell in the Cells the last time you were going to see these girls go at it, so maybe they won't be able to do it. Maybe you do the same thing with Bailey. So we'll see. Raw versus SmackDown, women's Survivor Series match, picking Team Raw. The big one just got bigger. Team Raw versus Team SmackDown in the traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series men's main event. This is going to be the big one. Team Raw versus Team SmackDown. Who has total team brand supremacy? You can say what you want to about the women's. You can say what you want to about the tag team. But honestly, in my mind, the only Survivor Series match that means something at Survivor Series to me is the men's one. This one is going to be the one for all the marbles. You can see that by them taking Baron Corbin out of the match, inserting Shane McMahon, that this is a big time match. This is going to be a lot of dream matches. I think you're going to see a lot of things being set up for future big shows, whether that's WrestleMania or anything else. You're going to be seeing a lot of things, pair off, whether that's alliances made, where you see AJ Styles maybe taken out by the Shield with Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, and Seth Rollins all getting their hands on this guy all at the same time. That might be a little bit far stretched because of the fact that AJ won the World Heavyweight Championship after leaving it. But, they have to sort of turn on somebody. There has to be some sort of bickering. There has to be some sort of a fighting between everybody in here. Maybe Dean Ambrose just has a common, grudge against Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is somebody that rose to the main event after the brand split. So it has to make sense. Somewhere in there we see a triple power bomb. It'd be a little bit, weird because of the fact they're on two separate teams, but they were all involved in a fatal four-way when they did it to Randy Orton. They all decided to team up if it was just for a few seconds before Reigns and Ambrose started beating up on Rollins because he started to gloat a little bit too much in there. Word coming out of this match is that Randy Orton is going to be taking time off after the Survivor Series match. Kind of weird that they already started him on the Bray Wyatt storyline, and now here he is going to be going absent. It wouldn't make sense to me if this is where you see Randy Orton turn on Bray Wyatt, maybe hitting an RKO on Bray, and because you would think he would want to show up on SmackDown and gloat about it. So I don't know. It seems like it's kind of weird to me. Randy Orton has always been sort of a wild card. I don't want to say that he has experiences of just saying that he's coming and going as he pleases, but Orton is a guy that surprises me at times and has really good matches that I really like. But Orton is also a guy that a lot of times to me, if you've seen it once, you've seen it all. He's just not my guy. That's honestly the best way to put it. I'm glad that he's in WWE, but if he wasn't there, I don't think that I would really be crying about it. And I know that he has a lot of fans out there, so a lot of people might not understand that at the same time. Shane being added into this, that he's going to have one special spot, sort of like everybody knew that once it was named, it was going to be a Hell in the Cell match at WrestleMania 32. Everybody knew Shane was jumping off that cell. I don't think anybody thought that he was going to be jumping off and trying to land on The Undertaker on top of the announce table. No, I don't think anybody thought that Shane was going to jump off the top and miss, but everybody knew that Shane was going to get his WrestleMania moment, and him beating, I think he beat X-Pac at WrestleMania 15. I honestly don't remember. I know they had a match and they beat the piss out of each other, and that was pretty fun. But I think with all the outside interferences, whether if that was the Mean Street Posse or Patterson and Briscoe, no, because I was going to say that when Triple H came out there and turned on him, Was it during that match? Because Triple H fought Kane? And maybe it was Triple H who turned on X-Pac, and that's why he lost that match. I can't really remember. It's been a while. That's easy to say. But as we saw on Monday Night Raw, their team doesn't all get along as well. I mean, you've got Jericho and Owens. They're a strong unit. You've got Rollins and you've got Reigns. They really haven't patched things up 100% yet since their time fighting over the Shield. Braun Strowman has come out and said that he's on Team Braun Strowman, and the only guy he's really looking out for is himself. Even though Jericho and Owens have tried their best to recruit him in. The biggest thing that I see going down, and I don't think he's going to be involved at Survivor Series, I just think that he is sort of like a Money in the Bank factor. When somebody has the Money in the Bank briefcase, you always have to be wondering, is this guy going to be showing up at the pay-per-view? It's almost like every time you make a prediction video, you have to talk about the WWE Championship match, and then you have to make a thought at the end of it if you think that he's going to be cashing it in, if you think that that's, when Sheamus had it, or if it's when Seth Rollins had it, or anybody in the past, but Undertaker, he basically threatened everyone on Team SmackDown that if there was, anybody letting down this team, Undertaker believes that he bleeds Team SmackDown, that he bleeds Team Blue. He's been on this brand since day one. Even though he wasn't drafted, he still feels like he's a part of it. And it makes sense. In my mind, I want to see it as basically building to AJ versus Undertaker, which in my mind is a little bit of a stretch because of what the Undertaker is and what AJ Styles is. Even though he's WWE World Heavyweight Champion, it's hard to think of a guy like that going to a guy like The Undertaker. But maybe this is somebody that The Undertaker's wanted to work with for a while or something like that. Maybe he's on a short dream list of opponents, or maybe it's just he wants to wrestle. WWE doesn't know what to do with him, so they have to give him just sort of a main event guy. In my mind, when I thought about like Brock Lesnar versus Dean Ambrose, that match at WrestleMania didn't really make sense to me, and it just sort of seemed like it was a pushover, even though I kept pushing for the fact that I want Brock to lose that match to Ambrose, thinking that it would mean a whole lot for Ambrose, and it wouldn't really mean a lot to Brock in the long run, knowing that we wouldn't see him until SummerSlam. So, we've already seen Undertaker against Shane. We've already seen Undertaker against Randy. We've already seen Undertaker against Bray. So I think it builds to him and AJ. Maybe that means Cena wins the Rumble and we finally get Cena versus Undertaker at WrestleMania 33. But this is going to be a fun match. I'm really picking Team Raw on this one. And if you go back to my last video that I made last week, I was picking SmackDown. But the whole Undertaker thing's got me all in arms, and I think it's going down on Sunday. Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here as we are driving in to pick up my kids from school to finish off the full show preview. So we're going to finish this off talking about the main event of WWE Survivor Series 2016. We got Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar. Today's an early release day. I'm sure everybody out there remembers the good old early release days. Maybe there's some people out there who still go to school that watch these videos. Honestly, I hope not. But you never know. I'm glad that anybody watches these videos that pick these up. But today's early release day. The kids are getting out early. I'm going to pick them up. We're going to go get some ice cream later tonight. I don't know what we're doing for dinner, but the ice cream's the big main event. We're going to this place called The Parlor. They make ice cream-filled donuts, so we'll check that out. But Goldberg versus Brock is going to be the big one. I can honestly tell you that I don't really like either one of these guys all that much. Neither one of these guys are my favorites when it comes to wrestling. I've never been the biggest Brock Lesnar fan. Every once in a while he has a match that I really get really excited for. Goldberg is a guy, I was at this guy's the biggest match in his career when he won the WCW championship from Hulk Hogan in the Georgia Dome on Monday Nitro. One of the most talked about events that happened on Nitro ever, for the fact that basically they gave away a pay-per-view main event for free and then never capitalized on it ever again. They never had a return match. They never tried to make any money off of it. They just gave it away. I believe it was the last time that WCW ever won anything in the official ratings. I think that it was done from there, even though I think that happened in '98, and they would try to heat Goldberg up a few times. They'd even try to turn him heel. They would just keep him just sort of afloat. I think that Goldberg wasn't even in the picture when WCW went down. I think that's when they were running the gimmick of Scott Steiner was beating everybody. And I think Scott Steiner had beat Goldberg and they sort of taken him off TV. They had done that with a few baby faces. And I think they were going to have a storyline where all the baby faces came back at once to sort of take on Scott Steiner. And that's how they were going to take him out, was guys like DDP, Kevin Nash, Goldberg. These guys were all going to return at the same moment to take out Scott Steiner, and he was going to be the one feeling the big booty daddy. But fun times with this pay-per-view. I can honestly tell you that I am jealous of my Click brothers, Justin and Ravi, going to be going to the show up in Survivor Series. As far as I know, they're going to be doing everything that weekend. I think they're doing NXT, Survivor Series. They went to Monday Night Raw on Monday in Buffalo. I think they're going to Raw, which I think is going to be in Toronto the night after. I think they're staying there. I'm not quite sure. But, that's as close as it's going to get to WrestleMania for those guys, because they're not going either. I know more people not going to WrestleMania this year than I know people that are going. And I know that sounds weird, but when it comes to my circle of friends, normally everybody goes. And it's always sort of a big story that somebody's not going one year, and you miss out on them. I remember heavily trying to recruit Justin to go to WrestleMania 31 when we had an extra WrestleMania 31 ticket. But fun times, are coming ahead. When I looked at Goldberg looked freaking jacked as hell. When Brock took his shirt off, honestly, I was sort of hoping that Brock would have left the shirt on. And I know that Brock can do a lot of training in a week, but I don't honestly remember Brock's gut being that big. That maybe it was because Brock wasn't wearing his fighting shorts, and maybe it was because Brock was wearing they're not cargo pants. What do you, I guess you can say training pants, I guess is the best thing to say, because I don't know what else to call them. But Brock didn't look to be in A1 number one shape. I know that Brock got to fight at UFC 200. I know that Brock also got busted by USADA for having a bad drug test. I know that John Jones has fought against his. I know that Brock Lesnar had filed an appeal against his. I hadn't heard anything about that case yet. I don't know if it hasn't been met yet, or if UFC threw it out because of his status with the company, with him not really being a UFC fighter. He's just on loan for one night. And there's no point of really suspending him if there's really no shot of him ever really coming back. So, honestly, when it comes down to it, I think that Brock's going to win this match. I don't think that Goldberg's going to be the guy to beat him. I would put money on Goldberg being the main event guy to go into the Hall of Fame this year in Miami. I know that, it's big news that Goldberg's come in. It makes you sort of think, almost like when you think about Sting, when Sting finally came in, into the thing at Survivor Series, which led to him having the match at WrestleMania 31 against Triple H, and him being the guy that everyone was talking about WrestleMania weekend. If Goldberg would have came in at 27, how big would it have been? If Goldberg would have came in at WrestleMania 30, how big would it have been? I know that sometimes they were talking about Goldberg versus Ryback. That doesn't seem like it would have been as big as it could have been. I know that was a rumor for WrestleMania 32 that I think Goldberg honestly didn't have any part of it. It was probably Ryback that started it. But I'm glad that he's back. I'm glad that people are excited. I'm glad that people are talking about wrestling. It makes it a fun time to be a wrestling fan, and people are excited, even if it's not for something that you're really excited for. But here we are. We're not on the eve. We're almost on the eve of Survivor Series, with this only being Friday. But I can honestly tell you that I'm pumped for this show way more than I thought I was going to be. I can honestly tell you that when it comes down to it, I want to see the men's match. I want to see the main event. Everything else will sort of be filler. Even though the show is going to be 4 hours, I am excited for it. I don't know when I get off on Sunday. Maybe I'll fast forward through a little bit of the show if I get off late, if I get home at 9:30. But if I do get off at 5:30 or at 6:30, I can see myself sitting through whenever I get home and watching the rest of the show, even if I have to see the women's match or the tag match, stuff like that. But this could be a damn good show. Take Brock in the winner, though.